Welcome in, everybody. This is going to be a YouTube exclusive. So we're going to do something a little bit different than we normally do. I bypassed my stream today. I've been kind of introspective lately, and I've come across this one new YouTube account that has talked about a bunch of different things. This one's actually on being single, and there's another one that I really like about critical thinking, but I think that one you can kind of deduce on your own. This one actually triggered like quite a bit of thoughts for me and personal experiences or experiences I've had with other people that are married or in relationships all the time. So I kind of wanted to just watch this video, stop and pause it and talk about certain things as they pop up, because a lot of times if you watch these and they kind of go too fast, you don't pause them enough to let like the thoughts kind of like sink in and fully make sense. So that's what we're going to try and do when it comes to this. But yes, this is, so if you can read the screen, this is Friedrich Nietzsche. I think he was a genius philosopher at his time, but I wanted to also pause this so you had plenty of time to read this in the background, but then we'll get started.
Imagine a life where you are entirely free to shape your destiny without compromise, without having to mold yourself to meet the expectations of another person. Picture waking up in the morning, not to fulfill someone else's needs or schedules, but to pursue what truly sets your soul on fire. Now I know what you might be thinking, but isn't love, companionship and partnership one of life's greatest joys? It can be, yes, but there is a truth, a profound truth, that few are willing to confront. For some people, the most powerful and transformative path they can walk is the path alone. And today, we will explore why staying single might not only be the best decision you ever make, but also the most liberating. By the end of this journey, you will see how solitude, when embraced consciously, can become the crucible where your greatest self is forged. And I promise you, the final insight we will uncover together will be the most powerful of all. Before we dive in, if you enjoy these deep explorations into philosophy...
All right, I'm just going to pause it here because it's just basically like, hey, if you like this stuff, follow me or whatever. But quick backstory or whatever, like, I was one of those guys that, like, I never had a problem really, like, talking to girls, like, middle school, high school, whatever. But I always thought it was kind of silly in, like, high school to, like, date that serious, because it was like, dude, we're still kids. We're still growing up. Say I get an awesome situation right out of high school that I got to move across the country or whatever to do. I don't want to feel like, oh, my long lost love of high school is going to keep me there. And I kind of had the same like philosophies in college as well, where like I thought I would meet like the one or whatever when I was in college, but then the same stuff kind of popped up where it was just like, yo, like most of us don't really know who we are yet, and if I get a great internship or a great job out of college, like I want to be able to like drop everything and go do it and not feel guilty about it. But that's a little bit of background on me going into this, okay?
Psychology and personal growth. I invite you to subscribe, leave a like, share your thoughts in the comments, and share this video with someone who might need it. Because what you are about to hear might not only challenge what you've been taught about relationships, but also open doors to a new way of living that is richer, freer, and more authentically you. Let us begin with a reality Nietzsche understood deeply. Relationships, for all their beauty, can also be chains. Now, this is not to demonize love or partnership. Nietzsche himself was fascinated by human connection, but he was also keenly aware of the compromises and sacrifices that often come with it. He believed that to become who we truly are, we must sometimes distance ourselves from the noise, from the pull of the crowd, and even from the comforts of intimacy. The modern world has taught us that being single is a temporary phase, a gap between real-life milestones. From childhood, we are fed stories, films, and social scripts that tell us the goal is always to find someone, to complete ourselves. And yet, Nietzsche would challenge this notion entirely.
All right, this is one point that I definitely wanted to stop on, because, yeah, it does feel like constantly in our society or whatever, we've been told that, like, if you're not in a relationship, something's wrong with you. Because, you know, the whole point is to, you know, get together with someone, get married, settle down, have them complete you, have some kids, and pass along, you know, your name or your lineage or your journey or whatever. And that's supposed to make you like this complete person. But he's going to talk about some other things. I actually have another like working theory that I'm not sure when I'm going to bring it up, but I'm going to break down why I believe it is actually important for you to be single for a decent amount of time too, in your 20s when you're self-discovering yourself. And also it kind of like, while this is more relationship based with like finding a significant other, it kind of also, I'm not saying don't have friends, but it kind of also crosses that line of like friendship and having relationships with people and like relying on them for certain things and the compromises that come with it. But we'll continue on.
He would ask, if you are not whole on your own, what exactly are you offering to another person? Being single offers something extraordinary, a rare chance to build that wholeness without distraction. In solitude,
Actually, so this was my working theory. So if I can get this to work. All right, here's my pencil. This might not be the best backdrop for it, but whatever. This is what my working theory is. Okay, so when you're, say, 18, 19 or whatever, that's not what I want. I want a stats. I want a pencil. All right, so say this is person 1 and they're 19 years old. So coming out of high school or whatever, we'll just say 18, okay? Coming out of high school. To me, you're like 60% of who you are. So like this entire bubble or this entire part of the pie is who you are. It's the like natural abilities you have, the way you were raised, your beliefs, your habits, or whatever you got from your parents, your friends, whatever, your education system that you've got through, growing up or whatever. This is who you are. Okay. Majority of this is not going to change. You know your math, your science, you kind of base your relationships based on what your parents have or your grandparents or whatever. This is the gist of who you are. Now, society kind of makes you believe that to become whole, you need to find this other 40% or whatever in somebody else. So person 2 is supposed to come along and say, like, you're growing, say simple stuff like you don't know how to do your taxes, you don't know how to do laundry. These are skills, or like stuff that you like. Maybe you don't know how to drive, or you don't know how to do anything about car insurance or whatever. And this person does. So this person comes along and they go, hey, I know how to do all this stuff. And so we make compromises. We say, I know how to do this stuff. So the 30, 40, 50, 60, whatever percent, it depends on who you are, that you know how to do that I don't know how to do. Let's get together. Let's get together. My strengths become, the things you need, your weaknesses, like we counterbalance each other, okay? But the problem is people are not that simple, that they just have, you meet somebody and they're like, they have all the things you need or all your weaknesses or all the things you don't know about. More than likely, there's going to be a lot of like, okay, well, if this is your 60% in the yellow, more than likely it's going to be like, okay, well, your significant other is 50% of the same stuff you have. Maybe there's a 20% chance that like there's some overlap here. So you are getting better, but you're not really a whole person. And if you are to live fully, then let's switch colors. We'll say green now. If you are to live fully, that means that between the two of you, you then seek out the knowledge or the whatever you want to learn to grow as an individual. And that will complete, this little pie chart. So, whoops. So like everything down here, you learn together. And then you're complete and whole and you're happy and that's your life or whatever. But it's just not that simple. Really, let's see if we can start over. Okay, so let's go back to yellow. Really what I think it is, this is your circle. You're still at your 60%. So all this is your skills, strengths, whatever you've already learned, your biases, good or bad. And then the best way to grow as a person is to then challenge yourself. Travel, go to college. If you don't know how to do your taxes, learn how to do your taxes. Say you want to learn how to fix a car because that's your job or whatever. Okay, that's life experience. So we'll change this as a brief color. We'll just say blue. So then you have these like small little pizza slices of experiences, and you learn and you start to become a more fulfilled person, more well-rounded person, more whole. Okay, I'm not saying you ever fully become 100%, because I feel like that's like a combination of like a growth mindset, that you learn the skills that you need to survive, but also like accepting the things that are out of your control, like government, finances, whatever. You can't be a pizza boy that delivers part-time and be a millionaire. Like, that's just not realistic. So it's like realistic expectations. But throughout your life, you can kind of keep adding all these little like pizza slices of growth. And kind of what he's saying in this is the only way you really grow is you either have to challenge yourself, which is hard if you're with somebody else, because you have to compromise and say, hey, we either got to do this together, we financially can't afford it, so you can't do it. Oh, my time slot doesn't work, you can't do it. But when you're single, it's kind of up to you. So if I want to say like, hey, I really want to travel, I really want to get in tune with nature and stuff like that, and I'm going on a trip next week because that's kind of what I want. Okay, well, I can do that, and I can enjoy my solidarity and reflect and think about who I am as a person, think about who I want to go, and I can go and do that, and I have the freedom to change it if I want. And and I can. Where relationships, it seems like one step forward, two steps back. All right, I get a little bit, but then I got to give up a little bit. And I think he's about to touch on that, but this is kind of the working theory that I want to mention now. Because like, as being single, like, there's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong there. And you actually have the ability to grow and grow faster than other people and not be restricted by what other people think, what other people can do, whether that's a relationship or even your friendships. Like, I was talking with a friend before this where I was saying, when I was younger in like high school and like a year or two outside of high school, I said, like, I always wanted to go skydiving. Like, I was afraid of heights. I wanted to conquer this fear. I thought it would be the best way to do it would be to go skydiving. So got a couple of friends, said, hey, let's go skydiving. There's a place not far away. It's a couple $100. So like, in summertime, let's do it. Okay. The 3 or 4 months go by and I go, hey, it's that time. Let's go skydiving. So-and-so couldn't go. So-and-so didn't want to do it anymore. So-and-so couldn't raise the money up. So it was, do I just not do it? Or do I go by myself and just like, maybe it's not as fun, but you still get that experience. So for me, I just went and did it anyway, because I was like, I wanted to do it. I saved my money. I made a plan, and I went and did it alone. And I had that experience with the other people that were on the plane with me as well. And I actually do feel like it conquered my fear of like heights, or like of being on the edge of like a tall building or something like that. So it was a very like key moment. And I mean, maybe not the biggest of moments, but it was a key moment in my life that I feel like I grew as a person, because I stood up to a fear, challenged it, did this, and then after it was over, I was like, okay, I see now. Like, and there's like the growth of an individual. But I could have easily had a significant other that I had to wait on and never happened, or wait on my friends that said they wanted to do it and then they backed out or didn't really plan their way. And that's kind of a theme that I found throughout my life, was you might only get 1 or 2 opportunities to do something. It's better to do it by yourself than to not do it at all. So again, that's another thing that I wanted to briefly mention. But this is kind of a long video, and we're only 2.5 in, so I'm going to keep going.
You are forced to confront yourself fully. There is no one else to blame for your unhappiness, no partner to fill the empty spaces in your identity. This can be frightening. Loneliness can creep in, and it can feel like a shadow that follows you everywhere. But Nietzsche would argue that within this shadow lies a great teacher, because only when you are alone do you learn what you truly value, what you truly believe, and what you are truly capable of. Think about it. How many dreams have been set aside because of the compromises demanded by relationships? How many personal goals have been quietly abandoned to avoid conflict, or to keep the peace, or to prioritize someone else's path over your own?
I mean, something as simple as my one friend, he's a huge David Matthews fan. And or maybe even a band or whatever that's not going to be around longer. Maybe they're aging, maybe some of them are sick or whatever. They don't really tour anymore. What if they're like, this is our final tour, they're only coming to your city for one night, you're like, I really got to go, this band changed my life, I love them, it's the last time they're going to tour, it's the last time I'm ever going to be able to see them live, and your significant other's like, but babe, we can't afford it, or oh, I can't get off, or oh, I got plans with so and so, and then it's like, but they're also like, but I don't want you to go by yourself. If you know, like, for instance, this weekend I had two married friends. One said, I'm taking my wife to the game, it's her first time going to an SEC game, I was super happy for him. And the other one said, man, I got a ticket, this game's gonna be awesome, but my wife won't let me go unless she comes with, and so he didn't go to the game. Like, that's kind of a lot of the things that I'm talking here, where it's like, unless you both seem to really, really love one thing, the compromises are never ending, and you're going to miss out on a lot of things because of it.
Nietzsche believed that your highest duty is to yourself, not in a selfish, careless way, but in the recognition that only by becoming your fullest self can you offer anything of real value to the world. When you are single,
I know I'm stopping this a lot, but there's a saying in as an EMT or a firefighter or whatever, is like, you have to take care of yourself first before you can help anybody. And that's like, it sounds selfish, but it's super true. Like, you're no good to anybody if you're not good to yourself, and you're not, somewhat put. So, like, for example, I used to be an EMT. I used to work in mental health. So a lot of my day was talking to patients that were like suicidal, maybe they're bipolar, maybe they were just, I don't want to say crazy, but like, not all there, delusional, off drugs, whatever, in pain. If I was not like fully rested to have patience to listen, if I was not taking care of myself physically, maybe I was exhausted, I was hurt or whatever, not fully there to be like in that moment with them, I can't really be a good like advocate for my patient, or to have conversations with them to maybe help them out in the situation. Because that's like, without saying any names or anything, if you've ever picked up a patient that tried to kill themselves and they failed, and then you have to transport them to a place where they're then going to get to a therapist, all that other stuff that comes with it, and you have a hour and a half, 2 hour ride with them, the worst thing that they want, and this is something that they discuss here too, a lot of people that are not okay with themselves and don't want to be single because of them not being okay with themselves, the worst thing that they want is to be stuck in a place that's quiet and they feel alone. So a lot of those conversations that I would have with my patients were on these long trips, sitting in the back of an ambulance, just like talking about things to look forward to in life, or maybe even addressing failures of their past or drug abuse or whatever. But I can't have those meaningful conversations if I myself do not believe in it, or have not like found a place in myself that I am comfortable being in a room by myself with. I am comfortable with who I am as a person in this big world, So you always have to take care of yourself before you can help anybody else. And that's always how I felt with relationships too. Like, if I'm a hot mess and I can't function properly, can't keep down a job, whatever, why would I then expect somebody else to take care of me? Like, you're a burden. And people do this all the time. They expect somebody to come save them and be their hero and take care of them. But at the end of the day, like, if you can't take care of yourself, you're not really any good to anybody. Like, they might think that for a while, and you might have little bits and pieces of charm that you can make it work, but you got to be okay and happy with yourself before you can be happy with anybody else.
you reclaim time. Time to study, to travel, to create, to master a skill, to read the books you've always meant to read. Time to develop physical and mental strength. Time to discover passions you didn't even know you had. This is not time wasted. It is the fertile soil in which your best self can grow. Nietzsche would call this the self-overcoming.
Again, another thing that this hits for me is the ability to have quiet time to try out things, creative, whatever. Like, I used to write a lot. then I got into reading, then all these other things that I wanted to learn how to do. You know, it's like when you study a book or a subject, where do you go? You go to a quiet place, a library, or whatever, to study. You don't go to a concert to study. And when you constantly have people around or whatever that need attention, you know, like even your pets, like they lean on you. It's really hard to cultivate those things when you constantly are being pulled in so many different directions.
Process of constantly surpassing your current self to become something greater. But there is another reason why Nietzsche might advocate for staying single, at least for a season of life: the preservation of independence. True freedom is a fragile thing. When you enter into a partnership, even the healthiest one, you inevitably give up some measure of independence in decision-making, in lifestyle, in how you use your time and resources. For some, this trade is worth it. For others, it is the silent erosion of the very thing they value most, their autonomy. And here is where we must pause to ask ourselves a difficult question.
Before we ask that question, one of the things I've found in a lot of my, again, I'm a male, so a lot of this is male perspective or whatever. One of the things that I've learned through my peers, my friends, whatever, is that a lot of their hobbies just like died. Like a lot of my friends used to be like pretty serious gamers, like not competitive or anything like that, but like that was their way after a long day of work or whatever, that they would decompress. And they don't play games at all anymore because their wives, their girlfriends, their fiancés or whatever were like, no, I need attention. You need to spend time with me. You know, those few hours you get after work before we go eat dinner and go to bed, I need that attention. And by all means, in a good relationship, you need that. But you also need to have a significant other or whatever that allows you that freedom and that downtime to decompress. If you've had a bad day at work, if something crazy is going on in your world, maybe you have a relative that's sick, that means a lot to you. For me, really, the main one would be just the time to decompress, whether that's play video games, read a book, hit the gym, whatever. A lot of my friends or whatever lost those hobbies, those what's the word I'm looking for? Those like external resources that they needed to help them function in the world that they're in. And I could just see a lot of them like slowly like separating themselves inwardly and hiding from the world because they just didn't feel like they could talk, or they didn't have an outlet to let go of their feelings or their thoughts or whatever. And because of all the time that's, you know, the resources that's then having to pay to their wife or whatever, like it's just kind of sad to see. But again, timing, relationships, you got to carve off a little bit of time for yourself. All right, let's ask this question.
One that I want you to truly reflect on in the comments.
Ask yourself this,
Am I
chat.
choosing relationships out of genuine love or out of fear of being alone? Because the answer to this single question,
You got to answer that for
can
yourself.
reveal more about your path than any piece of advice could. Nietzsche would remind us that there is a vast difference between loneliness and solitude.
All right, before we get into loneliness, that's definitely a question I've asked myself before, was like, you know, like I've always wanted or I guess my life in general, maybe it's tempered a little bit, but it's like, there's a quote that I like that's like, you know, don't, oh, hold on, I'm gonna miss this now, but it's like there's the saying where it's like you have a floor and you have a ceiling or whatever, and it was like, don't tell me to reach for the ceiling when I know there's footprints on the moon. You know, like it's like, don't give me these limited expectations when I know I can succeed over whatever and get, you know, over deliver, overshoot or whatever. Like there's greater expectations for me out there in the world. Now I forgot where I was going with this. So let me rewind. Oh, it was the question of being alone or fear of being alone. I always, when it came to like women, I always thought like, man, I'm gonna have to really meet somebody special, somebody that's like, you know, moons and stars and everything like that. Like she's really got to be something special to complement the life that I live and to be a part of it and not like overtake it. And I, you know, I've been single for a long time, and like I don't really like, I like who I am. I like the life that I kind of have. Like, yes, we all have work problems and stuff like that, but like there's not a lot of like the free time that I do have, I take advantage of it and I appreciate it. And it would take a lot for me to give all that stuff up. And there's been points where I think due to society and due to my age, like I'm over 30 now, that I'm like, are my expectations too high? Do I need to limit them, lower them? And I think a lot of people have that question, male and female. Like, maybe my expectations are a little too high. Maybe I need to lower them. Maybe I need to settle for security, support, whatever I can get. You know, maybe they want kids or whatever. I got to have them by a certain age or whatever. Society puts so much pressure on that stuff that you need to have this and this by a certain age. When really it's just like, if you're happy and you're full and comfortable with who you are, if it comes, it comes. You shouldn't be settling just to say you're with somebody or to fit into the circle of the norm of society. Like, I feel like I think a lot of people feel that way, that they have to settle, but you're never going to be, like, you might be content, but you're never going to be happy if you settle like that, especially for somebody else that's going to, you know, compromise different aspects of your life. So
Loneliness is a void, an ache, a hunger for someone to fill a perceived emptiness. Solitude, on the other hand, is a strength, a conscious choice to stand apart so that you can see the world and yourself more clearly. When you learn to transform loneliness into solitude, you no longer seek relationships out of desperation. You choose them from a place of abundance, not lack. In this first step of our journey, we have begun to peel back the layers of societal conditioning about relationships. We've seen how Nietzsche's philosophy invites us to rethink what it means to live fully and authentically. But this is only the beginning. In the next part, we will go deeper, exploring the hidden ways relationships can limit growth and how embracing singleness can lead to levels of creativity, focus, and personal mastery you never imagined possible. Nietzsche once wrote that, "No one can build you the bridge on which you, and only you, must cross the river of life." This is one of his most profound reminders that the journey
love
of
that.
becoming is deeply personal. So personal, in fact, that even the most loving companion cannot walk it for you. This is why, for some people, remaining single for a significant period is not just an option, it is a necessity for their highest growth. When you are in a relationship, your emotional energy is naturally shared.
Before they go into it, the gist of, if you don't get that, or I guess the gist of it is like, you got to decide who you're going to be in life. Nobody can do that for you. Like, I don't care how much of a mama's boy you are, daddy's girl, whatever, and controlling parents you might have. At the end of the day, once you become an adult, you got to decide who you want to be, what you want to do with your world, your life, anything like that. Even if you meet a significant other at 19 or 19, 20 and get married, they can give you suggestions or whatever, but you still got to decide who you are and what you want to be or what you want to do. So that's kind of what he meant. Like, you got to build your own bridge and cross it. Nobody else can do that for you.
Attention is divided between your own goals and the needs of another person. This division is not inherently negative, but it is undeniable. And if you are in a stage of life where your greatest work is still being shaped, this division can slow or even stall your progress. Nietzsche would ask, if the bridge you are building is still incomplete, how can it hold the weight of two? One of the most overlooked truths about solitude is how it fuels creativity. When you are single, the silence becomes a canvas.
I want to briefly talk on this because I feel like, especially lately, but not just now, but many times in my life, I've done a skill. For this example, because this is more recently, it's been video editing, voice editing, AI creations, creative writing, storytelling, writing scripts. Like, all these are all creative things. I didn't take a class on this stuff. Nobody showed me how to do this stuff. I just had an open mind and a creative mind, and I had an openness and willing to learn. So I went out and trying to find different ways to teach myself how to get better at writing, how to get better at video editing. And and it's still a work in progress. I'm still trying to get better at stuff like this, but these are things that, like, when you're sitting there and you're like, I have a little bit of time, my curiosity says I want to get better at this. I mean, it doesn't even have to be a skill. I just like learning new skills, and I love learning. Like, it's also other things of, like, certain podcasts, certain books that I read because I want to know more. Like, my friend got me into this one Dungeons and Dragons podcast because I didn't really know how to play, and it was a good story. I've learned a lot about that. I've bought a book now. I've designed my own story. Now, I'm not going to say I'm going to be the greatest dungeon masters if I ever get that confidence to get this game started, but I basically taught myself that from scratch. Now, you got to have that willpower to say, hey, I want to learn, and it's going to take time. But then also, like, you need that time to struggle through some stuff, get better, you know, throw something crappy out there, then suddenly you edit it a little bit, polish up the turd, and keep going. But times I needed those times of solitude, quietness, not having anyone around to nag me or distract me in order to fine tune these skills that I feel like I've gotten a lot better at. So keep that in mind, because we're going to talk about creativity.
Fewer compromises, and fewer subtle pressures to conform. Artists, thinkers, and innovators throughout history have often done their most groundbreaking work in periods of aloneness. Nietzsche himself spent much of his life unmarried, wandering through the mountains and writing with relentless focus. He understood that the mind needs space, uncluttered space, to think thoughts no one else has thought before. And this is not limited to artists or philosophers. Whatever your calling, whether it is to start a business, to master a craft, to explore the world, or to deepen your spiritual practice, being single allows you to dedicate your full force to it. You can...
He's got another video that I posted in my Discord about critical thinking. And kind of along with that video and this one as well is... I don't know if this has much about, like, significant others or whatever, but that ability to have, like, an open mind to think about certain things. So one of the topics recently in MLB was how to restructure the league if adding 2 new expansion teams. And everyone came out with, okay, if we add 2 more teams, then we got to break the 2 leagues up and we have 4 divisions of 4 teams or whatever, because that balances it out. And because I had critical thinking and an open mind and I had time to kind of sit and chew on this for a little bit, I actually came up with the third option that I actually like better and works better with the playoff structure, and they still get all their money or whatever. But, like, I don't feel like a lot of people have enough willpower, time, energy to, like, sit there and chew on a thought for a couple hours, couple days or whatever, because they're so worn out by their day and then having to go do the next thing, to do the next thing, to do the next thing, that they never have that solidarity time or that free time to just sit and think. Or they're just so worried about being alone that they don't have that, like, open space enough in their brain to just think about other random thoughts instead of just the fear of being alone.
Take risks without asking permission. You can change direction without long negotiations. You can follow a sudden inspiration without explaining it to anyone. In short, you can move like lightning, unburdened by the slow consensus that relationships often require.
I kind of mentioned this before, but, like, I told a couple people that I'm going on this trip next week, and they all at, oh, what are you doing? I go, oh, I'm heading to Texas, going on a road trip, gonna camp out, do some fishing, catch a ball game, gonna take my dog. And like 3 people go, oh, you're not married, are you? And I'm like, no, why does that matter? And they're like, because nobody just nobody just is allowed to just go on a road trip, you know, by themselves and camp out and do whatever. Like, there's too much compromise. Oh, she doesn't like camping. Oh, she doesn't want to fish. She's not going to want to do that, so she's not going to let you do it. Like, and I felt that because I knew multiple people that were married that were like, that sounds fun, man, but I could never do it. I'd never be able to go. And that just, part of me, that made me sad. Part of me also made me realize, like, it's nice to have that freedom. Like, I don't mind being single. I like the freedom.
However, the benefits of staying single go beyond productivity. There is also the deep work of self-understanding. Nietzsche was fascinated by the concept of the will to power, the idea that life's fundamental drive is not merely survival, but the urge to grow, to expand, to become more than we currently are. But this growth requires knowing where your strengths and weaknesses truly lie.
This part is kind of what my little working theory that I mentioned before with the circles. That's kind of reflects what he's talking about right here.
Relationships, for all their warmth, can create illusions. Your partner might reinforce your strengths, but also hide your flaws from you, sometimes unintentionally.
Like in the circle.
When you are alone, There is nowhere to hide. The mirror is clear. You see yourself as you are.
I guess something as simple as like, you're 20 years old, maybe you're 25 in your first apartment, right? You have this girlfriend, she knows how to cook. So you rely on her to cook you dinner every night. Well, if you're single and you don't know how to cook, guess what? You're either going to spend all your money eating out, or you got to learn how to cook. And then there's growth there because, okay, I'm sick of mac and cheese. I'm sick of going out every night, blah, blah, blah. All right, let me learn how to cook this. Let me learn how to make that. And then suddenly, before you know it, like, you're a decent cook. Well, you wouldn't be that if you weren't forced to be that.
Kind of self-confrontation is not easy. You will meet parts of yourself that are uncomfortable, even ugly. But Nietzsche would argue that it is only by facing these parts head-on that you can begin the process of self-overcoming. Without solitude, you risk living forever with blind spots that limit your growth. Let's also speak about resilience.
Just like cooking.
Modern society often frames relationships as emotional safety nets, and while having someone by your side can be a great comfort, it can also make you less adaptable to life's inevitable storms. Staying single forces you to rely on your own strength. You become your own anchor, your own provider of emotional stability. This doesn't make you cold or unfeeling. It makes you strong. And from that strength, you are actually more capable of loving others deeply, because you are not loving from a place of need, but from a place of choice. Ask yourself this.
Before we ask yourself this is something I've realized too, because when bad things happen in life that get you emotional or whatever, you know, it's nice to have somebody shoulder that you can cry on. But when you don't, you know, emotions are energy. Okay, well, energy can be transported, used. Okay, if you have these feelings of sadness or anger, okay, well, how do you channel that? What do you use that towards? Do you use that emotion in your writing? Do you go hit a punching bag to take out your anger? You don't rely on anyone to help you process your thoughts for you. You are forced to do that, and you are forced to channel that into something. And if you don't, okay, maybe it eats you up or whatever, but you got to deal with those repercussions of your actions. Like, that makes you such a stronger person. And it also makes you like inwardly, not rationalize, but you feel it so much deeper that when you see other people going through that, you can be their rock. It makes you way more empathetic towards other people because you had to go through it on your own. You saw the different angles of how it made you feel, not feel, the stupid decisions you might have made, and you don't want to see someone else go through that or make bad decisions like maybe you did. So it makes you more of a well-rounded person, more empathetic.
If tomorrow everyone you knew disappeared, would you still know how to live? This is not meant to be a grim thought,
Yes, I would.
but a clarifying one. When you are single and fully engaged in your own life, you develop skills, passions, and inner resources that make you capable of thriving
Just
no
having
matter the
hobbies.
circumstances. You are no longer dependent on the emotional climate of another person to determine your happiness. Nietzsche's philosophy also warns against what he called herd morality, the tendency of people to adopt values simply because they are common or socially accepted. One of the most powerful acts of individuality is to define your life's path without bowing to collective expectations. And
Now, there's a little bit of like, I definitely beat to my own drum, and I usually state my opinions, but there are definitely like situations where it's not like a relationship thing, but it's like a job status thing where it's like, I don't follow the herd when it comes to certain beliefs, but at the same time, like, you got to protect yourself. Like, if I'm working and somebody that I run into as a client and they have complete opposite opinions of me and whatever, and they're following the herd, so to speak, I kind of have to nod and just agree, even though it eats me alive because I hate that. But it is okay to have your own original thoughts and go against the grain. Like, you might be outcast or whatever, but like, I don't know how to explain it. Your confidence just seems to like rise and double and triple when you do.
nowhere is this more relevant than in the question of relationships. Society tells us that partnership is the default, that singlehood is a waiting room. But what if singlehood is not a waiting room at all? What if it is the main event? This is where the courage to live differently comes into play. Choosing to stay single in a culture that prizes couplehood can bring criticism, misunderstanding, even pity. people may project their own fears of loneliness onto you. Nietzsche would remind you that the crowd
Totally
often
do.
resents those who live by their own rules because it forces them to question their own choices. Your task is not to convince them. Your task is to live so fully that your life itself becomes the proof of your path. And here,
This is huge because I've had many people that are like married, kids, whatever, and I almost feel like they live through me because they're like, something pops up, say it's a concert, say it's a game, say, I don't know, something fun that you like to do. For example, for this, we'll just say a concert, okay? Concert pops up, we find out it's in a month. And I'm like, yo, so-and-so's playing. Let's get tickets. Like, we can share a hotel, whatever, let's go. And it's, I can't go, man. I can't take the time off. I can't leave my wife at home with the kids. She's never going to allow me. I don't have the budget to just drop everything and go do this. Like, I'd have to take a couple of vacation days. I have to get that approved. Where, like me, I just go, hey, it's Friday night or Saturday. Boom. I have weekends off, drive up there, got some monies in my savings. Like, let's just go make it happen. Like, you have that freedom to adjust and adapt on the fly where you just can't do that when you're stuck in a relationship with compromises.
lies a subtle but profound shift. When you embrace singlehood as a conscious choice, not as something you've been left with, you radiate a different energy. You become magnetic.
This is important too, but I guess back on that thought too is just I guess that wasn't really more about adaptability, but like the things that I find interesting or passionate about, I can still chase them, where they also might be interested in that stuff as well. And only like fun or adventure they're getting out of it is through me and through my photos and my stories. It's kind of sad, but it is what it is.
Not because you are seeking someone, but because you are fully alive in yourself. Ironically, it is often at this point, when you no longer need anyone, that the most aligned relationships appear. But whether they do or not, you have already won. We are now approaching the deeper layers of Nietzsche's thought on self-mastery and the danger.
I wish I counted how many times I've been the wingman for my friend who's in a relationship, on a first date, whatever, and we're out and we're having a good time, whether it's a bar or whatever. Like one of my friends, I remember, we went up to visit this girl for the first time for him or whatever. We went out, we went to a bar, and there's karaoke there, and I went up and was like talking to strangers, and I was the first one to sing a karaoke song and kind of got the party started. And I came back to the table, and you know, they were talking, and then the one he went up to sing a song, and she was like, I don't know how you're single. Like, you're confident, you're charming, you're good looking, like I don't know how you're single. And I've had this question happen so many times where it's just like, look, I'm not desperately seeking anyone. If it happens, it happens, but I'm happy and content with who I am. Like I said, you really got to be something special to add to my life, because I know that no matter what, I'm going to have to compromise. You're going to subtract something from the life that I have now, or I'm going to have to give up something. So it's almost a slap in the face to certain people when it's like, wait a minute, you're single, you're happy, and you get to do fun stuff? Like, how does that happen? Like, it's crazy how many times how are you still single?
Of emotional dependency. In the next part, we will explore how staying single can transform not only your independence, but your relationship with love itself, and why, in Nietzsche's view, this transformation might be the most important step in becoming who you truly are. Nietzsche once described love as the most subtle form of possession. This was not a dismissal of love's beauty, but a recognition of its potential to bind the human spirit in ways that are not always visible. When we love, we inevitably want, consciously or unconsciously, to shape the person we love, to mold them to fit our needs, our ideals, our vision of the future, and in turn we allow ourselves to be shaped. This mutual,
because we all want to be a little bit better, easier to live with.
When you are single, you step outside of this dance. You are no longer orbiting around another person's gravity. You are the center of your own universe.
I guess here's a funny one or whatever. So if I date, so I have when I make food, because I can cook. I cook for myself. When I cook, I make my stuff I make my meal, I go eat my meal, and I put all the dirty dishes in the sink. Now, I don't clean the dishes every single day. Doesn't bother me. I'll get to it when I get to it. But if I'm going to cook and make all this mess, I want to eat my food. I don't want to have to worry about cleaning the dishes. Now, I know just like live with roommates before, like that ticks them off sometimes. Like, don't leave dirty dishes in the sink. It's just like, for a day, 2 days, is it really that big of a deal? It's not a big deal to me. But a significant other, that might be a huge pet peeve. And she might say, hey, can you just make sure you do the dishes after you cook? And I'm always like, look, if I cook and I make you a meal, you got to be the one that cleans it. Like, that's the compromise that I would want. But that might not be the compromise that they want. So, like, that's something that's, like, seems small and minor. But it's a tedious thing that we would do every day. And eventually it's going to turn into a fight. And eventually somebody's going to have to change or adjust, even though they don't want to.
This is a radical shift, and one that Nietzsche saw as essential to self-realization. For him, the highest goal of life was to become who you truly are, not who your parents expected you to be, not who society told you to be, and certainly not who a partner needs you to be. Remaining single, even for a season, gives you the uninterrupted space to do that. But there is another layer to this, the transformation of your relationship with love itself. In the modern world, love is often confused with attachment, and attachment is often mistaken for security. Nietzsche challenges us to ask, do I love because it frees me, or because it chains me? When you are single, you can learn to love in its purest form, not as a possession, not as a mutual contract, but as a force that flows from you without expectation of return. This is what makes love expansive rather than confining. Paradoxically, the person who has learned to be deeply content alone is often the one who can love most selflessly. Why?
Because they don't have need.
Approach love as a transaction. They do not need someone to fill a void. They have already filled it themselves. Their love...
That goes back to the whole circle thing that I was saying, was like, if you have two people with two different circles, and they're trying to like mash their circles together to become whole. Well, if you're already a circle that's like 90% whole, you're not really relying on anyone else to like fill the gaps in your life. You've already kind of filled them. So you can just objectively, naturally just love the person for who they are and not for who they can be or can't be.
Becomes a gift rather than a negotiation. Nietzsche's own life, though marked by solitude, reveals an underlying longing for connection, but not at the cost of freedom. He would rather walk the path alone than compromise the integrity of his journey. Here we must also confront one of the most uncomfortable truths about relationships. They can be a refuge from personal growth. It is possible to hide from our own flaws by focusing on the flaws of a partner. It is possible to delay confronting our fears by immersing ourselves in the dramas and responsibilities of shared life.
Yeah, I don't feel like you even need to be in a relationship for that. I feel like people do that all the time, where instead of looking inward at themselves and their problems, they look at other people or the world and just complain. And they don't actually figure out, like, hey, maybe I'm a part of the problem. Hey, maybe I need to do better.
Singlehood strips away this hiding place. Alone, you must face your procrastinations, your insecurities, your limitations, and in facing them, you have the chance to overcome them. Think of the concept of amor fati, which Nietzsche championed, the love of one's fate. This is not merely acceptance of your circumstances, but the active embrace of them, even when they are difficult. To be single and to love that state, not to tolerate it, not to endure it, but to truly embrace it, is to practice amor fati at one of the deepest levels. It is to say, I choose this moment exactly as it is and I will use it fully. This mindset transforms solitude into abundance. You begin to see that your time is not empty simply because it is not filled with another person's presence. Instead, it is full of potential, full of creation, full of self-discovery. You stop counting the days until someone arrives and start counting the ways you can expand in the days you already have. Nietzsche would likely see this as the foundation of what he called the Übermensch, or the Overman, a person who creates their own values and lives by them, independent of the herd. The Overman is not afraid of being misunderstood. The Overman does not need validation from the majority, and the Overman certainly does not define their worth by whether or not they are partnered.
I guess one example of this for me would be being on my own or whatever and such and educating myself, learning about the food industry would be like me becoming a vegetarian and trying to live as much vegan as I can. Like if I had a significant other that was like, super meaty or whatever, maybe I'd compromise. Maybe there would be tension. Maybe I would like think less of myself because, of their beliefs or whatever. Like I'm like, no, dude, this is how I think. You guys can like it or not. I'm not going to force you to change your opinions, but like, you're not going to do anything to change me of mine. Like I prefer animals over people to begin with, but it's for me, I don't have any like illnesses, diseases, anything, whatever. It's my choice. And I believe it's for the animals and it's for the environment and everything like that. Do I get ostracized because of some of this? Do I miss out free meals at the work events because of this? Yeah. But I'm just used to beating to my own drum and kind of standing on my own 2 feet. That just doesn't bother me anymore.
But let's be honest, walking this path is not without its challenges. There will be moments when the world's pressure to couple up feels suffocating. There will be nights when the quiet feels heavier than usual. Nietzsche himself, in Letters to Friends, admitted to deep moments of loneliness. Yet he also understood that these moments are not signs of failure. They are part of the human condition. The question...
Even that, like, it's just a human condition. You could be in a room full of 100 people and still feel alone. Like, just because you're with somebody doesn't mean you don't have bouts of loneliness. Like, it's going to happen regardless.
Is not whether loneliness will visit you, but what you will do when it does. Will you run from it, or will you let it teach you? If you let it teach you, you may find that loneliness sharpens your clarity. It forces you to see which connections are genuine and which are born of convenience. It teaches you to savor your own company, to cultivate...
That's almost interesting right here, too, because how many people have, like, how they're saying, like, relationships of convenience? How many people have had, like, friendships with their coworkers, and then as soon as you leave the job or whatever, it kind of just dies and doesn't go anywhere? Like, maybe you're beer buddies or whatever, or even just that. Like, maybe you made some friends at the bar, and then you stop going to the bar, and suddenly, like, you don't talk or you don't do anything because that was the one thing you guys like to do, was, like, go out and drink or eat wings or whatever. Or you're only friends with one person because they like to play basketball and you played basketball, but if it was anything else, you guys didn't get along. Like, we make these relationships, I mean, this is kind of outside this, I guess, a little bit, but you make friendships out of convenience all the time, whether you realize it or not. Now, if you can accept that it is what it is, you'll be fine. If you start to overanalyze it or whatever and say, like, what did I do wrong? I don't think you did anything wrong. It's just you gotta be able to realize what the relationship was in the first place.
Friendships and communities that are chosen rather than clung to. And perhaps most importantly, it prepares you to engage with the world not from a place of need, but from a place of strength. As we prepare to enter the final stage of this journey, remember this: staying single is not about rejecting love. It is about refining your capacity for it. It is about building a self so strong, so complete, that when love arrives, it does not consume you, it complements you. In the next and final part, we will uncover Nietzsche's most powerful insight on the subject: why the ultimate freedom is not found in avoiding relationships, nor in seeking them, but in mastering yourself so completely that either path becomes a conscious, fearless choice. Nietzsche believed that the greatest task a human being could undertake was self-mastery. To him, freedom was not merely the absence of external constraints, but the ability to rule over one's own impulses, fears, and desires. This is where our journey culminates, in understanding that the true power of staying single...
I don't know if this is where he's going to go, but you ever have that one friend, or maybe you're that one friend where, like, they're kind of impulsive on certain things. Maybe they're not great with money, or like you're in a couple or whatever, and one of the two is the one that handles the money or controls the money. If it's just you start to realize, hey, I got to stop buying all these clothes. I got to stop buying all these shoes. Like, the budget's getting too tight. Maybe I got to skip on some groceries or some meals, or maybe I can't go to that concert anymore because, like, well, you kind of learn by doing. So you got to figure that out on your own and not have somebody on your shoulder being like, mom or dad like, hey, you can't buy that. You can't.
Is not about isolation, nor about rejecting love, but about forging a self so sovereign that every relationship you enter, or choose not to enter, comes from a place of conscious choice, not unconscious need. The most powerful insight Nietzsche offers is this: you cannot truly choose love until you are free enough to walk away from it. Freedom, in this sense, is not about running from connection. It is about having such a firm foundation within yourself that you can meet another person as a complete being, not as a fragment searching for completion. When you are whole, you do not seek someone to fix you. You seek someone to walk beside you. And if that person is not there, your path remains just as meaningful. In a world that glorifies romance as life's ultimate achievement, this idea is revolutionary. But Nietzsche was never one to seek the comfort of the crowd's approval. He saw life as a constant act of creation, with each individual as an artist shaping their own existence. If you are single, you are in the rare position of being the sole architect of your days. Every decision you make can be entirely your own. This is an extraordinary responsibility, and it is also a rare privilege. But what does it mean to master yourself? It means knowing your values so well that no relationship can pull you away from them. It means having the discipline to pursue your goals without needing someone to push you. It means understanding your emotional patterns so deeply that you are not ruled by them. And perhaps most importantly, it means being able to stand in the full reality of your life, with its joys and its struggles, without needing to escape into someone else's story. Nietzsche's concept of the Übermensch is not about being invincible. It is about transcending the limitations that most people accept as inevitable. Most people accept that their happiness must be tied to someone else's presence. Most people accept that being alone is a problem to be solved. The person who embraces solitude as a fertile ground for self-mastery is already living beyond those limitations. They are already free in a way that few ever are. This is why the most powerful advantage of staying single is not the extra time, nor the freedom from compromise, nor even the heightened creativity. It is the inner strength you cultivate when you learn to be entirely at home with yourself. From this place, you can engage with the world, with friends, with lovers, with strangers, not as someone looking for validation, but as someone overflowing with their own life force. You become, in Nietzsche's terms, a creator of values, someone who does not simply inherit the definitions of love, success, or happiness, but forges them anew. And here is where everything we have explored comes together. Staying single is not about waiting, it is about becoming. Whether you remain single for a year, a decade, or a lifetime, the essential work is the same: to use your solitude as a forge, to burn away the illusions about who you think you must be, and to emerge as the truest version of yourself. When you do that, any relationship you enter will be one of expansion, not dependency. And if no relationship comes, your life will still be overflowing with meaning, purpose, and joy. The irony is that once you reach this state, love may find you in the most unexpected way. But by then, you will not be the person who needs it to feel complete. You will be the person who chooses it, and can just as easily walk away if it compromises the life you have built. That is real power. That is real freedom. So if you are single now, see it not as a waiting period, but as a sacred opportunity. Use this time to explore your mind, to strengthen your body, to deepen your understanding of the world, to create something that outlives you. Learn to enjoy the quiet mornings and the nights, when the only voice you hear is your own. Fill your life so fully that any love which arrives has to run to keep up with you. In the end, Nietzsche's challenge to us is simple but profound. Do not live so that someone else's presence makes you happy. Live so that their absence does not make you unhappy. When you achieve this, you are no longer bound by fear, loneliness, or social expectation. You have stepped into the rare and exhilarating state of owning yourself completely. And that, perhaps more than any relationship, any romance, or any fleeting passion, is the kind of love story worth living. Thanks for looking.
I'm sorry. That's good stuff, but I'm like, until you value your semen, no one will value. That is a freaking weird video I haven't watched yet, but let's hide this for a second. And let's go back to the drawing board, because this is the gist that I guess I'm trying to get across. So we went over the circles. we're going to go back to it again. So we have person 1 in the yellow, and say they're 60% complete. But they decide, hey, I need that other half to feel whole, so we can be one. So they go and they find a significant other, which is, this second one that has all the things they need. She's everything I'm not. She's a great reader. She's a great cook. She's blah, 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 blah. Maybe traditional couples, whatever. Look in the back of the day where it's like, he's the hunter, provider, makes all the money, can protect me, and she's the soft-spoken caregiver, takes care of the kids, whatever. You merge these two together, okay, you got a full circle, right? You're whole. Well, in today's society, what's more than likely to happen? They're going to get divorced. So then you end up two halves, two incomplete people back there on the market that never really worked on themselves. Or would it be better if you had person A, and that's a terrible circle, who, at 18 is 60% full of who they are, knows who they are, and then they decide, hey, I need to go through this period of self-discovery to learn out who I am, what I'm good at, what I'm not good at, have some real inward discussions of I don't know how to cook. I need to learn how to cook. I don't know how to drive. I need to learn how to drive. I need to go out and get some work experience and learn how to build things or know how to do stuff and learn how to drive a forklift or, just life experiences that you just learn by doing random jobs. Even if you're a cashier, customer service skills, handling money, stuff like that. So, it ends up couple years. Boom. Okay. All right. Maybe it's only 5%, but that's 5% growth. All right. And then, another couple years go by. You expand on what you've already learned, maybe some other new jobs, maybe some failed relationships, maybe get a dog, maybe something happens, but you know what? You're still growing. So boom, you're there. And then you're like, you know what? Maybe I want to move. Maybe I want to travel. Maybe I want to see another culture. Maybe I want to get outside of the life I've always known, get some different perspectives, again, spirituality, whatever. I want to grow as a person. And then boom, that's a big change. Okay. Then boom. You continue to improve, self-discovery, everything. And then maybe something negative happens to you, a car accident, you got to bounce back, recovery, deal with medications, family members die off, people you relied on, friends, family, whatever. You lose them somehow. You got to learn to really, really stand on your own 2 feet and be your own support system. Okay, that's another big one. Boom. You're growing again. Okay, you're almost like a complete full person. You're dependent. You're emotionally stable. You know how to have a job, keep it. You can also keep other relationships, but yet you're still growing. You're going to concerts you want to go to. You're trying new things out, whatever. And then suddenly, you meet somebody, and they've done the exact same thing. Throughout their life, they've slowly been gaining little bits and pieces of themselves, and now you have 2 full people, or mostly full, because I don't feel like we're ever fully perfect or fully whole, but 2 people that are 95% full, happy with who they are, and they get together. And that's a good relationship, because you shouldn't be 2 halves that have to be put together to make things work. You should be 2 whole, complete people that choose to be together. You're not forced to be together. You don't rely on each other. You choose to be together because it makes a more fulfilling life, or, whatever. Maybe you want kids, whatever. But that is the relationship that you should seek. That's the relationship that you should want. Maybe they push you and they're the one person that helps you get that final 10% to your wholeness or whatever. That's what I believe. I believe there's nothing wrong with being single. I think it's a great chance to discover yourself, your weaknesses, your strengths. I don't have a problem being in a room by myself either, because I like to think about things. I like to challenge myself. I like to think outside the box and try to, when they only give you options A and B, I try to think of, okay, well, what would happen if we did C? I'll give you an example And again, this kind of falls in the line of critical thinking, and that's another video for another time if we want to keep doing this. We had, in college, we had 2 groups. They were each given 1 card. So we'll split this down. We have group 1 and group 2. And again, this kind of falls into critical thinking, but it also kind of falls into this a little bit as well. So group 1 was given a card, and these are scientific teams. And then group 2 is given a card. And group 1 didn't know what group 2's card said, and vice versa. So they said there was like, I think it was like 30K oranges. And we opened the floor up to discuss and negotiate, whatever. And group 1 said, there's 30K bundles of oranges that we need, because with our scientific discovery, we found a way that if we can get the outside of the orange, we can mash it with something else and we can cure cancer. We can cure skin cancer. So we need those 30K. Well, then Science Team 2 says, hey, wait a minute now. We need those 30K of oranges, because we've discovered a new way that if you take the core, the inside of the orange, we can solve global warming or solve another cancer, just to keep it simple. But in both processes, it ruined, when they got the inside, it ruined the outside. And when they did the outside, it ruined the inside. So it wasn't a sharing situation or whatever. And so we're in this group, and I want to say it's like a classroom of like 20. So we got like 10 and 10. So we got 10 people over here, and I'm on team 2. So there's 9 people over here, and then there's a little old coach over here. And they're just yelling at each other. We need them here. This cancer's more important than this cancer, and they're dropping numbers and they're making stuff up. Blah blah blah. And the teacher looks at me and she goes, my name's Brian, by the way. So she looks at me and she goes, Brian, you look disengaged. What's wrong? Why aren't you partaking? Why aren't you just, why aren't you arguing for your team? And I go, because right now there's no point. Nobody's listening to one another. It's all about me, me, me. I go, you've tried to put us into a no-win situation, but this is what you do. And she goes, well, fine. What would you do? I go, okay, well, there's 30K. Let's split the teams. So we have group 1. That's a terrible G. We have group 1. We have group 2. So we got people from 1 and 2 that are going to group 1. And we have people in 1 and 2 going to group 2. We split the oranges. Each of them get 15K. We work together to see if there is one solution that you can save the core of the orange. So on this one or whatever, because they need the shell. We want to see if there's a way that they can save the core. Maybe with the help from group 2, they find another solution. Same thing's going on over here, but reverse the problem. Okay, they still are going to get the core or the middle part, but they're going to try to find a solution to save the outside. And if it doesn't work, well then, hey, you still get 15K oranges to work on your cancer problem, and you still get 15K to solve on that. I go, so both teams, while it's not the full 30K or whatever, you still get 15K, you're still making progress, and maybe next year to make a better batch. But at least you can try these 2 different samples to hopefully find a solution that works for everybody. And the bell rang, or I don't even know if the bell rang in college, but time ran out, we had to go, and we left, and I was about to flee out the door, and teacher pulled me aside, and she was just like, I know we didn't get to break this down, and I won't see, I think we're going on holiday or something like that, some break. So she basically was like, I like what you did there. You looked at the entire picture, you heard both sides, and you came to your own conclusions. You didn't think it had to be one way or it had to be the other way. You found a third way. And while it might not have worked, it could have. And if it didn't work, we really didn't have anybody to blame but ourselves. And I was like, exactly. But it took me as like a whole being to be able to say, hey, I'm willing to be on the outside with my own opinions. I'll speak up when I'm ready. And I waited for the moment. I spoke up and gave my discussion and said my reasonings. And everyone went, okay, I can get behind that. That works. Sometimes you got to be that person that stands on your own 2 feet, has original thought. And that's kind of the same concept as being single. Sometimes you got to be okay with being alone. Sometimes it actually is going to lead you to some great moments, some great thoughts, some great creative, ingenious whatevers. But you got to have that confidence enough to be okay with being alone. So I'll end you with that. My dog is whining. She's ready to kill me because she wants to go poop everywhere, I guess. But I love these type of videos. Definitely make sure to follow this guy. His account is just The Psych on YouTube. So drop him a follow. And if you have any comments, please hit me up in Discord, Twitter, whatever. Drop me in the YouTube comments, whatever. But appreciate you listening.